Chapter 6. The Formation of the Resistance. Me? Citing a spy of an agent of Orden as an ally? How dare you suggest such a thing? Syl, Spirit of Chaos, allegedly. Footnote, Orden is the Spirit of Order. Athena. The bandits and Lucy's sickness slowed us down, and we reached Inna about 2 weeks after we left, on the day of the blood moon, also known as the third day of the full moon. Lucy had recovered by then, though her illness had left its scars. She found herself wishing that her dresses covered her neck. To compensate for this, she knit a scarf, which has the added benefit of being warm, which, though not a necessity yet, would soon be. Of course, I caught it just before she recovered, but despite her protests, I refused to give up control of the leashes until she regained her strength and forced me to. It was worse for her than me, as we were in Draco by then, and her connect was not very good. Something that neither civilian nor soldier would overlook, or most of them at least. There were some times when she would run back to me with her face bruised and her veil askew. When we finally reached Inna, I was cold, wanted to go back to bed, was the closest I had to her bed now, more than anything, and itched everywhere. Lucy still had some still healing bruises. Yet, despite how terrible I felt, I insisted that we pass onward, refusing Lucy's suggestions to wait until I recovered before we did anything, and to do all the talking for me. Even though I badly wanted to accept, I had my reasons for rejection. Before we entered the village, we found a small art shop that had a fairly inexpensive Sylish-style ushanka, a fair art that originally from Vix, that Syl had brought to the rest of the continent. This one in particular was a very popular in Syl and Syl, with ear flaps. Lucy frowned when she saw me looking at it. You want to buy that? You already have a hat. It is affordable and warm, I said. I can just put my beret on top of it. I thought you were supposed to be the practical one. Lucy muttered. Regardless of her criticism, though, I bought it and put my beret on top of it. Lucy smiled when she saw me. Maman doesn't approve. I could say the same for you, I said flatly. I didn't have the energy for jokes. I felt a pang of guilt at the sight of the expression. Maman had always been annoyed by Lucy's insistence on wearing a veil. Once, I had defended her by saying that from the founding of Syl to the end of the Iron War, it had been common for all women and girls to wear a veil, regardless of age or marital status, at which point she asked where mine was. Once we got to town, we asked for directions to the stable, where we found Syl. It now looked like an old Vixic man, with golden elytra and presumably flight wings under them, but knowing Syl, there could just be nothing, wearing a purple and yellow jester hat. Oh, you two! You brought it! I'm both impressed and disappointed. You're welcome. My voice was flat. He was acting far too energetic for how I felt. Now are you going to pay us? He huffed. Fine. You're taking all the fun out of this. I rolled my eyes. It's your fault, indirectly, I thought. Syl had created smallpox and several other innocent illnesses, including the plague, because he thought it would be funny. This was why he no longer dwelt in the Beyond Realm. He dropped several zwardeloshs into my mitten-covered hand. You know, he said with a smile, what is that there's a pair of siblings looking for a... How should I put this? People mad about all of this. He gestured around us. This is Vix. That doesn't narrow it down. I probably would have laughed under normal circumstances, but again, I didn't have the energy for jokes. He smiled. Around your age, they're looking for the help of an arachno. Why are you telling us this? I felt the urge to scratch my face. He couldn't, because I think it'll be fun. All right, maybe we'll look for them. He smiled. I will watch your career with great interest. He's disintegrated, leaving his hat sitting on the stool where he once was. What did he say? Uzelu said, confused. I sighed and gave her a brief description of what he had said. Huh. So what do you think we should do? She asked as I finished. Well, we do need a place to stay, I said. We can start at the tavern. In truth, I wanted nothing more than to take a nap or sit by the fire with a mug of tea and a good book, but I did not say that. When we got to the tavern, we sat next to an Avak, wearing the tunic and toga typically worn by married Avakni's men, as well as a black cloak. All these are worn and patchy or poorly made. He was muttering to himself in what I guessed was the Mitonese dialect. It sounded Western, with many of the final vowels cut off or reduced, and the auxiliary verb switched. And Mito was the largest clan here. Because of his speed and volume and use of dialect, and the fact I didn't feel like trying to understand more foreign languages than necessary, I couldn't understand much. But from what I could, it sounded like he really liked cinnamon. I think the girl was playing a waltz on the flute. As typical as a Vixor in the summer, she had cyan brown fur and was wearing a red vest over a white blouse and black skirts. This was a Grangery. The Grangery originated in the northern parts of Fen Island and was brought to Vix by the Solites. It became incredibly popular with Vixic women and soldiers when a Solite man pointed out that women didn't usually wear it, and Vix saw an opportunity to annoy Sol. When the girl finished, she came down and sat next to the Arachno. Can you? No, said the Arachno. The Vixic girl sighed. Please? No. But wait. The answer is no. As I've said before, it's a terrible idea, and I don't want to die. He sounded irritated. Wait. Now he looked at her, his eyes glinting with fury. No, somehow this is going to go wrong, and I don't want to die. The girl sighed. We ain't alone no more. You have one other person, and I don't know why you trusted him. There can't be too many Arachni, you're right? As much as I don't feel like talking about now, we do need a place to stay, I thought. What are you talking about? I winced, both because my pronunciation was terrible and my head hurt. He sighed. What are two fairies doing this far north? Where are your parents? The Commonwealth is a mess and my parents are dead. I adjusted my glasses with a trembling hand. Also, judging by your accent, you would have had to cross at most 4 international borders if you got here before the war and went to both Sol and Draco, where we crossed none. Anyway, what are you talking about? He crossed his arms. Why would I tell you? I raised an eyebrow. Because I asked you a question and is polite to respond truthfully? Zvik sighed. We want him to teach us how to fight, but he thinks it'll get him killed. Not so loud, Raquettes! Are you trying to get us killed? The Arachno said in Arachnes. Then he blinked, realized he'd said it in Arachnes, and brought one palm to his forehead. I translated, again, with much worse pronunciations than I usually had. How do you know that? Zvik asked. I shrugged. I was a very determined child, and Lucien was a very annoying one. Oh, well, thank you. She turned to the Arachno. Now, as I've said, we ain't in some folk tale. I blinked. Wait, is this about mental death? Most of it is because of their motivation. He glared at the Vix. But yes, to much less of an extent. I sighed. You listen to too many folktales. I would ask about the motivation, but considering where we are and what Theo told us, I think I already know. Wait, what did he do? He gave us a job, which we did, and then he says that 2 Vixic siblings are doing what almost everyone else here is, if the books are to be believed. I dug my nose into my palm, resisting the urge to scratch my chest. She looked surprised. You actually did what he asked? I shrugged. We needed an excuse to leave. He gave us one. Now, if you're indeed like half the main characters in a Vixic literature, I can't read. What are they like? I sighed. Use context clues. They are all either an allegory for Vix or the Vixic people. What did you say? Luzelus asked. I sighed again and translated for her. Perhaps I should have taken Luzelus up on her offer. Then again, I probably would be still stuck translating everything for her. As I was saying, I continued, if you're like half the protagonists in Vixic books, then I believe my sister and I would be interested, as long as you and any of your friends working with us are old enough not to be considered child soldiers in accordance with the honor conventions. Vix blinked. What age is that, and what are the honor conventions? Excitement pokes on my fatigue, my face breaking into a smile. 6 for dragons, 14 for Fae, 12 for Nadia, 13 for Vix for... the honor conventions are... Zirachno interrupted. No, you're not explaining us that. You're not killing us today. I sighed, my fatigue returning. Right, that. The Emperor didn't like the honor conventions because they were just a thing invented to ruin Draco even more than the Treaty of Deal already had. Of course, the Commonwealth had also been committing war crimes against Draco and Cinnis in the Iron War and the current one, but Cinnis hadn't been committing any. But if they were, they'd be justified. Then yes, we're old enough. Then we'll join. I turned to Luzelus and asked if she was all right with this. She said she was. The Vix clapped. Wonderful. The Arachno groaned. Fine, I'll teach you, but only to make you stop bothering me. Meet me here tomorrow. He glanced at me. On the second thought, please don't. Also, please do, I thought. On the one hand, I would feel bad slowing the Vix and their friends down like this. But on the other, I was incredibly tired and itchy. Meet me here next Morilla. Footnote, Morilla is the first day of the Thalite week and traditionally a day off from work. In Sylish, however, it is also a parent or a child-friendly replacement for curse words. Zvik smiled. Great, I'll show you a theatre tour, she said. My name's Juan Kalivnot. She held out her hand to shake. I shook it, and so did Luzelus. Is this a nickname for Juan, correct? I asked. It is, she confirmed. I fidgeted. Can I just call you Juan? My sister does not like... Luzelus frowned. How do you say it? Nicknames, I supplied. Yes, that. She doesn't like those, she said. Juan shrugged. All right. So you're named after a national symbol? Was that on purpose or by accident? I asked. She shrugged. Probably on purpose. My parents were... Well, she laughed a bit. You've probably heard what we're like. What are your names? I started messing with my clock again. Mademoiselle Athena of Alder. And this is my sister, Mademoiselle Luzelus. No, she is not married, and you can drop the honorific when we start using the informal you. Who was that? Those were not our full names, but for the Sylish, your full name was something to be shared with your close family and most trusted friends and unofficial documents, not someone you just met. There was one joke about the Queen taking 5 minutes to scream her son's full name. Tolapolo ta Lidovo, I think, said Juan. And that don't sound very Sylish. Is ancient Solite, I said. See what of Sol if you want to know why Solite names are so common in Syl. Is that a book? Again, I can't read, I said. It's an alternate history novel where during the Honored Agreement, the Solites used Senescence words against them and took over the continent. Footnote. The Honored Agreement was a negotiation in 728, just before the war started. Yeah. Cinnis wanted parts of Vix that Draco had historically conquered because they used to own it. They got it on the condition that they wouldn't take anything else. The war started 2 days later when Cinnis invaded the rest of Vix. We left the tavern, and Juan started leading us to the cliff overlooking the town. She smiled. "Thank you." When we reached home, a cave in Nina's cliff, I was exhausted, feeling practically half asleep. Despite that, I insisted on flying and later walking on my own. We met another Vix there. He had darker fur and eyes than Juan, and wore typical Vixic peasant clothes, a brown overcoat and pants, boots, and a wide-brimmed hat. Over it, he wore a dark red cloak. He wasn't alone anymore, though. That was also a small, by dragon standards, red and dark grey dragon with one blue eye and one amber eye. Upon seeing the dragon, all of my exhaustion evaporated, replaced by the need to explain in detail something vaguely related that no one asked for. Warenka. As soon as Mother Athena noticed provoked, she adjusted her glasses and then launched into a detailed summary of the Iron War, her grey eyes bright. Iron was discovered in Draco around the 690s. Soon after, people realized that contact harmed the Fae. Because Draco had this powerful a weapon, Syl and Lepus panicked and declared war. They won, according to Mama and Papa, after a lot of war crimes on both sides, and united into the Commonwealth. The treaty that ended the war was very harsh on Draco, and because of the trouble it caused, the Emperor rose to power. I also heard something about spies. I couldn't understand why she was talking about that, because she was speaking too fast, and some Sylish slipped into her monologue. "What's she doing?" I asked Mother Luzelus. Her hands twitched and curled as if around knitting needles. "I'm sorry, but I don't know. She talks too fast." Draconic was not as good as her sisters. It was slow and halting, like she was trying to translate inside of her head, and her accent was funny. I tapped Mother Celestina's shoulder. "What are you talking about?" She stopped talking and twisted one long gold curl around her finger, her previous tiredness returning. Sorry, I started thinking about the Iron War, and are we sure it's a good idea? What if he's spying on us? Like Sol, when she talked to someone, she held their gaze to an intimidating degree. We were hesitant to befriend him at first, but we're pretty sure he's a deserter. The soldiers have been mentioning someone that sounds like him. What? She shrugged. I guess it would be strange for Theo to direct us to a spy of the Emperor. So, what can you do? I can read, and I've studied history, literature, linguistics, and magic and music theory. I have little practice with magic, so the extent of my abilities is only a bit of shadow manipulation. My needlework and cooking are passable, and I play the common. Sol Pavokit and I stared at her. "How did you learn all of that?" I asked. She shrugged. "As I said, I was a very determined child. Lucien was a very annoying one." I can't... Mademoiselle Luzelus front. What's the word? Ill? I can hear with magic. A little. It looked like she was trying to knit with invisible knitting needles. I don't like fighting very much. I'm sorry. And I also play the gems horn. My cooking is edible. I wonder if this pause was because she was searching for the right word, or she wasn't sure how true it was. "She's also one of the best seamstresses in all of Alder," said Mademoiselle Athena, smiling. Mademoiselle Luzelus blushed and looked down, mumbling something. Her sister frowned. Actually, that's not much of a compliment considering the current state of Alder. I smiled. "Sol and I are musicians too. We've got a little consort here. Should we give it a name?" Mademoiselle Luzelus frowned. Well, we hope that will be the twilight of the Emperor, the Empire. So, about the Twilight Consort. So smiled. "The Madrigalists?" I blinked. Such a terrible name, and I thought madrigals were modernist garbage. They are, which is why no one would suspect that we're working against the Emperor. What is a madrigal? Pavokit asked. It's a kind of song. It's usually polyphonic, but so I don't like polyphony for some reason. I explained. Mother Syl is a loose friend. He doesn't like polyphony, but is so beautiful. I shook my head. It confuses me as much as anyone. He rolled his eyes and muttered something about intonation. Alejado o ro godilos is liturgy setting, and didalos ro adeliros is dishaf. Would like to have a word, Mother Celestina said. Footnote. Dishof is a delicite for hope. It is also a motet by Didalos o Adeliros with 45 parts. He frowned. So once with all of 30 parts? That's exactly what I am talking about. It's too much. It's too complicated. Who'd ever be able to sing those? I sighed. Anyway, of the two, the Twilight Consort is clearly the better. So I suppose that's what we'll call ourselves. Is everyone all right with this? They nodded. I smiled. Great. And sewing is useful too. A soul would rather crawl out from under his rock and actually talk to people than ask me to mend. Anyway, I managed to get Tolopolo's help. We'll meet him in the tavern in 4 days. Finally, Saul said. Anyway, well, I frowned. What's the plural of Madosel? Madoseles? Madoselesina explained. But since that was vocative, Madoselelo. I blinked and muttered. Stupid noun cases. Louder, I said. All right, Madoselelor. This is my brother, Sol Astorson, and our friend Bavokit. He's a Sinisen deserter. Bavokit and Sol. These are some girls I found while talking to Tolopalo. Madoseles, Athena, and Luzelus. She frowned. I am not sure what I expected looking for dissidents. She translated something for Mademoiselle Luzelus. So your boss is also named after a national symbol? I nodded. As I said, my parents were very patriotic. Pavokit looked confused. What? Is this about national symbols or full names? Mademoiselle Sina asked. He frowned. The first one and a little of the second. And what does Mademoiselle mean? She sighed. Patka. Then she turned to me. I nodded. The 8-pointed stars are national symbol, Huarnen. N means... I frowned. It means... well, it means... I blinked. What exactly did and the words and endings like it mean? I'd never thought of it before. I knew it meant something, and that their connect didn't have no translation for it, but I didn't know exactly. It's an article. The connect doesn't have them, Mother Celestina murmured, looking half asleep. It's difficult to explain. Yes, I looked at her. Are you all right? I'm fine. She didn't look fine between her tiredness and how thin she and her sister were, but I decided not to argue. As for Sol, he shares his name with the Sol Fox, which is our national animal. I continued. I already explained the Conic and Vixic names to you, and Arachnis does the same thing, right? Mother Celestina nodded. Before the parent's name. I frowned. And then the Sylish and Lepusians and Sylish just say they're from their hometown? She nodded again, now leaning on her sister for support. Odo. But we usually translate it. The Sylish have many names, 5 in our case, 2 of which are the names of their parents, but you know the ones you need to. Footnote, V, and Do are Sylish, Lepusian, and Thalate for from, respectively. Spirits, Mademoiselle Luzelus said, struggling to keep her upright. Is there somewhere we can keep her? I nodded and picked her up. She said something in Sylish. I carried her to my room and set her down on my bed. Well, the closest thing I had to one. Are you all right? I'm fine, just tired, she said. I would like some tea, and I should eat, but I don't feel hungry. I made tea and soup since it was lunchtime. I wasn't the best cook in the world, but it was edible and enough to feed everyone. Mademoiselle Luzelus looked far too excited to see it. Spirits, she said. I haven't seen anything like this in so long. What happened? I asked, concerned. She shrugged. Provoked shuffled awkwardly. I'm sorry. Mademoiselle Luzelus fidgeted and mumbled something I couldn't make out. Her face reddened, well, more than it was naturally, and she shrunk back behind her scarf. This made Provoked more awkward, and he apologized again, which did the same for Mademoiselle Luzelus, and so on. Spirits, I said. You two are worse than Sol and Peparuka, except for such a hopeless Wanka! So snapped. It's true, he sighed. I finished making soup, and we ate. It was nice to have more people around. For far too long it was just Sol and I. Provoked was a good addition, but it was much better now that Mademoiselle were with us, even if Mademoiselle Athena was sick and mostly just sat by the fire reading and napping. It was very nice having a seamstress with us, and Mademoiselle Luzelus ended up doing all of the mending. In fairness, she had wanted to do it as soon as she saw what I considered mending. The night of the blood moon was a fun time. We managed to find the necessary ingredients for the food, and the food we made was edible. The sight of the food got a smile out of Mademoiselle Athena, who then slept through the eclipse, something she was very grumpy about the next day. Mademoiselle Luzelus pointed out this happened every month, but it did not calm her. By Morilla, Mademoiselle Athena had recovered, and we met Apollo in the tavern. He saw us and sighed. I was hoping you wouldn't show up. Anyway, follow me, he said. He led us to a house. Inside was just a bed, food stores, and a rug. And as a rug so was a trap door. Go inside, he said. It will not fit, said Provoked. Glass is very and wide there. Can you get them into the basement? Apollo said. Mademoiselle Luzelus flinched and adjusted her veil. Mademoiselle Athena glared at him. Don't call us that. And we have names. Right. Sorry. Sounded like he meant it. We exchanged confused glances. Anyway, we cannot, said Mademoiselle Athena. Can you do it? He nodded. I can. I just don't want to. She raised an eyebrow. Seriously? Yes. He sighed and pulled out a wooden one that Mademoiselle Athena admired, and used ice and ground magic to make a hole big enough for Provoked to climb through. Seeing as I'm going to get killed, I might as well teach you how to fight. Come on. Apollo, this is real life, I complained. He turned around and glared at me. You're going to use this knowledge to try and overthrow the Emperor. But he's evil, I argued. That doesn't make this any less illegal. The basement was made of stone, and I wondered if he had used rock magic or built it by hand. There were a few rooms, one that looked like some sort of guest room with a bed made, one with several weapons hanging on the wall, and training dummies standing in it, and one that was small and dark, with many plants in it. It looked almost like a kitchen, but there wasn't no house. I wonder who the bed was made for, and who the dark room was for. he'd just shown up around the start of the war. He didn't have no friends and no family. If you have multiple weapons down here, why were you so concerned about helping us? Mother Celestina said. Wouldn't both of them just get you killed? No, hiding weapons would send me to prison, said Tolapalo. I don't think that's much better, not from what I've heard. Why do you have these in the first place? None of your business. He turned to the rest of us. Anyway, how good at you five are fighting? How good are you five at fighting? He asked. I have formal training, but I do not want to fight. Sorry. Provoked almost looked like he was expected to be yelled at for that. I can't fight, and neither can lose. Mother Celestina responded. Even if I could fight, I don't want to. Mother Celestina's hands twitched. Why does she keep doing that? I thought. Papa gave Sol and me a bit of training with the sword and the knife, I said. Lovely. Now I have to teach everyone except Minaret Sauce, said Tolapalo. Provoked frowned. What did you call me? Minaret Sauce in the Mitonese dialect, which means Mr. Suspicious, Mother Celestina responded. Oh, he frowned. Wait. And Tolapalo sighed. Just find what weapons you are not terrible at, and I'll teach you how to improve. I'll also teach you some magic. Mother Celestina's eyes sparkled at the mention of magic. The first thing we learned was that I was a terrible archer. I couldn't do it if my life depended on it. Mother Celestina was surprisingly accurate considering her bad eyesight, and Mother Celestina was just as good. They said they'd learned from hunting with their father and brothers. You two, come with me, said Tolapalo to the sisters after about 10 minutes. They followed him out of the room. Sol and I decided to return with melee weapons. I was bad at most of them, but found a rapier I liked using and named it Skotak, Snowfall. And Sol was bad at all of the makes of the knife. He found a knife called a butterfly knife that Mother Celestina said was popular with Sylish spies and named it Suktak, or Sunfall. After some time, Tolapalo returned with the fairies. What have you two been doing? He asked. He can use knives and I can use a sword. All right. You, quiet boy. You seem pretty sneaky.